Good evening and welcome to our Wednesday night live from the New Mexico Philharmonic. Tonight we will have two musicians from our wonderful orchestra. Let's start the show with Laura Chang, our principal violist, a native of Wisconsin. Laura graduated from the Peabody Institute, the music conservatory from the Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland. We'll start by watching a video of Laura performing the prelude from the Bach cello suite transcribed for viola. Let's watch Laura Chang perform this. And here is my guest for tonight's show, our principal violist of our New Mexico Philharmonic, Laura Chang. Good evening, Laura.
Hi, Roberto. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm very well.
Well, thanks for participating in our show. Such a pleasure to have you and to have the musicians from our own New Mexico Philharmonic participating. So that was so phenomenal to hear you performing Bach's cello suite transcribed for the viola. Now, originally, this is in D major, but when you perform it with the viola, you perform it in G major. Tell me about this performance of the Bach cello suite, the sixth cello suite.
So I've been systematically working through all the cello suites and reviewing them. And this is my favorite one by far. It is just pure joy when you play this prelude. It sounds like heaven. And it even, I think, has a nickname about that because of the ascents that you make on the instrument. Originally on the cello, the cellist had to use thumb position, and it was one of the first pieces to use thumb position. Obviously, we don't use thumb position on the viola. And so the original was in D major and it goes up extraordinarily high. And there are arrangements or transcriptions that do use the original key. And I just did some research on it a couple of weeks ago. But I think the thought is that because the viola is so large, it's hard to get your arm around the bouts of the instrument to reach those high notes quite as well as you could on a violin or a cello. So it's down a fifth and it's a little bit more comfortable to play, but I almost feel like the slightly lower key adds drama to the piece. And it's just so nice to hear the melodies. You know, you think of Bach as being a keyboard player and he's always thinking in chords, or at least I feel like he is. And I've played all of the sonata on the violin. And even when you're playing those, it is a linear feeling a lot of the time, and you have to work on really getting the melody out. You play the cello suites, it's the opposite. It's melodic, it's pure melody, and you have to work hard to find the counterpoint underneath.
But you know, I think Bach is the most perfect composer of all composers, in my opinion. So actually, Bach that has that characteristic that his compositions work perfectly for any instrument. I mean, here you have an example that a set of suites originally composed for cello, it works for viola as it would work for the trombone or for the tuba or for the French horn or for the, you know, the steel drums from the Caribbean. And, you know, he's such a universal composer that it will sound great no matter which instrument is performing it. Do you have that feeling?
I do. And I, you know, before this point, I always thought that the Bach keyboard music was my favorite. I grew up playing the inventions and then the preludes and the fugues on the piano, and I've changed my mind. I think that these cello suites are divine. They're just
absolutely
wonderful. But
now, Laura, we are so happy to have you in our orchestra, the New Mexico Philharmonic, and you've been with us for the last 2.5 years. I'm so thrilled that you are our principal violist, and you have brought so much already to our orchestra, you know, to your section and to our performances. It's always exciting to perform with you. Now tell me, where from?
I'm originally from all over. I'm a
Really?
child. I was born in Chicago, and
Okay.
my dad's work took him all over the country. So I was born in Chicago, and I have lived in Ohio and Texas and Minnesota and Wisconsin and Maryland and Washington, D.C. and Virginia.
Amazing.
And most recently, I've been in Colorado and now New Mexico.
And you recently have moved to Albuquerque, as I understand.
Yeah, we just moved in August. So it was at the height of the pandemic. But even though we haven't been allowed to do some of the activities that we're looking forward to doing later, we're loving it here. We've been so welcomed, and it's just such a friendly community. We're loving it.
You know, I moved to the United States when I was 14 years old in 1981. So do your math there. I'm 53 now, but you know, it was just, I went to Albuquerque for the first time, and I have to say, I went as a guest conductor, and I fell in love with New Mexico from the first moment I arrived there. You know, such a special place. It's so beautiful. It's so mystical. There's this special thing about New Mexico in Albuquerque, and then you meet the people, and that makes all the difference in the world. So I'm looking forward to the time that I could say, you know, I'm living in New Mexico and enjoying the life there, because it's quite unique and quite special. I always say Albuquerque is like the best kept secret in North America.
I agree. And I really hope that people come to their senses and start visiting a little bit more often. We're blown away by the people here, and also just all of the nature that surrounds us, and all of the special things that we can do outside here.
Absolutely. Not to mention the great orchestra we have, you know, the great people, our musicians, our patrons, and the audience, which for me is so amazing. You know, I think this is one of the most engaging audiences I've ever experienced throughout my 26 years as conductor, as professional conductor. So I'm so happy, and I'm so glad now you're part of our family. And on that note, we're gonna go to our next video, and you're performing this incredible piece. Tell us about the next video we're going to watch.
So you might tell from my hair and my freckles, I have quite a lot of English and Scotch and Irish ancestry. And when I was in high school, I was exposed to Scottish fiddle, and I just fell in love with it. I really enjoy how different it is from classical violin, but how it allows you to show your emotions in a different way and show your feelings. And I started fiddling when I was a teenager, and have off and on done a little bit. I just started playing fiddle tunes on the viola a little while ago as well, and I started looking at the music of Nova Scotia as something that I'd like to learn. And there's an area in Nova Scotia, it's called Cape Breton, where a lot of famous fiddlers come from, and they have their own individual history of fiddle music that's slightly different from the music in Scotland and Ireland, in that it also has a French influence. If you're familiar with Canada, you'll know that Nova Scotia was originally settled by the French. It was called Acadia. And most of the Acadians were sent away, but some of them did remain, and their music blended with the Scotch to form an entirely different kind of fiddle music. And it still has the rhythms, like the jigs and the reels and the airs of Celtic or Celtic music, but it's often a little bit more accented, a little more lively, and the ornamentation is a little different as well.
Wow, wonderful. So this is our Scottish moment, our Canadian jig, as you would call it, right?
Yes, and it's called the Ingonish jig.
Fantastic. So let's watch that right now. Laura, that was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for participating in our show tonight. It's great to have you on the show. It's great to have you in the New Mexico Philharmonic as the principal violist. You're doing such a tremendous job. And it's just so wonderful to see you. I can't wait for us to be together again.
Thanks for having me, Roberto. It's been really fun.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah. So all the best to you. Stay safe, stay healthy. And I hope to see you soon on
Oh, so do
stage, making great music together.
Thank you. Good night.
Take care. Good night. We just had a wonderful conversation with our principal violist of the New Mexico Philharmonic, Tait Chang. And now on to our next guest, our principal harpist, Matthew Tutsky, originally from Connecticut. Matthew graduated from both the Juilliard Pre-College Division and from the Manhattan School of Music. Let's watch Matthew perform Fauré's A Lady in Her Castle. So here's our guest for tonight's show, Matthew Tutsky. He's the principal harpist from the New Mexico Philharmonic. Good evening, Matt. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Roberto?
I'm doing great. It's so wonderful to have you in our show. What a wonderful performance of that beautiful piece of Fauré's. Can you tell us a little bit of that piece?
Yes, this piece, Un Châtelain en sa tour, A Lady in Her Tower, it was from a Paul Verlaine poem, and it's a really beautiful, whimsical a piece for solo harp, originally written for solo harp, and it's very rare that we have such wonderful harp jewels as this. Written specifically for harp. Most of the time we have transcriptions or arrangements of great masterworks. So.
So I have to tell you something, Matt, you would not believe it. But when I was a really small kid, from 6 years old, I had played, the piano, the mandolin, the trumpet. But when I was 9, I had to choose like what would be my principal instrument. And I ended up being a French horn player, but you would not believe it. Of choice, first of all, was the harp.
Oh, wow.
Because of King David from the Bible. I just loved, my biggest hero was King David, and he played the harp, and he composed. He, besides being a warrior, a king, that he was a musician and a poet, and he played all of the Psalms, and he sang the Psalms, and he was a harp player. And I wanted to be like King David, so I wanted to play the harp. But the harp is such a difficult instrument, starting with the instrument itself. I mean, how do you get a hold of a harp? So tell me about your story. How did you become a harp player?
When I was 8 years old, I actually had a dream that I played the harp, and that was around the time my parents asked me what instrument I wanted to play, and I said harp. And luckily, we found someone renting a harp down the street, and I found a teacher close by, and then after a few years later, I met a harpist who taught at Juilliard Pre-College, and then I continued my studies there, and that was when I decided to make it my career. So
Phenomenal. How old were you when you went to Juilliard Pre-College?
I was 14.
My God, it's exactly the age I was when I went to Juilliard Pre-College as a French horn player.
Oh.
So the French horn ended up being my main instrument.
Oh, yeah.
Because I did not get a hold of a harp. And I was 14 when I moved from Sao Paulo, Brazil to New York City to attend Juilliard. So that's amazing.
It's a lot to carry the French horn.
So I just love the harp. It's such a phenomenal instrument. It's such an ancient instrument. I mean, yeah. From the ancient Greek classic, I mean, what's the origin of the harp? What's the first? I mean, we have it already from the Bible. I mentioned King David in the Psalms that he used the harp, but I imagine it even preceded biblical times.
Right. I mean, you could really, if you wanted to get really technical, if you think about, caveman times when a caveman took a piece of his hair and tied it to a stick and had a bow and arrow and could pluck it. I mean, that's how primal it could be. And then I do have, let me see. I have a Celtic harp, which...
Oh, look at that. Amazing.
I can kind of show, it's hard to show.
A Celtic harp.
Maybe I could show it this way. I don't know.
That's phenomenal.
This was probably what they used in more medieval times, this size of a harp. And then you can see on the other side, the future for harp,
right.
The double action pedal harp, which is what we use in orchestras today. But yeah.
Fantastic. I just love it. I mean, the harp is one of these instruments that's so iconical. It's been present, in our culture for such a long time. And anyway, I'm so happy to have you in the New Mexico Philharmonic. Oh. You've joined us 2 years ago, and you've been all over the United States and all over the world. You have played with so many wonderful artists, one of whom I have also performed with often, which is one of my favorite soloists of all time, Emmanuel Pahud, the principal flute player from the Berlin Philharmonic. So tell me about your experience, having performed in so many different places.
Oh, yeah. It's been awesome. I really thrive. I have the travel bug. So one of my favorite places I love to play in is with the Iceland Symphony. I was supposed to play, they were doing a Wagner Die Walküre production. It was supposed to be February of this year, but it's actually changed to next February. But I sure love traveling. That's something that's wonderful. And with the Portland Opera and playing in Boise and all the places out west is so gorgeous. So I'm so grateful to be able to do that. Yeah.
Fantastic. So let's go to our next video, Matthew, and tell us a little bit about this next selection that we're about to watch.
So the next selection is a remote piece. It's entitled Le Rappel des Oiseaux. In English, it's The Call of the Birds. So.
Fantastic. Let's watch that.
Okay.
So Matthew, that was phenomenal. Thank you so much for participating in our show. And I'm so much looking forward to the next time we will be able to perform together. Now, you just moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico. How has it been to, actually living in New Mexico these days?
It's so amazing. I love hiking. There's so many beautiful natural parks that I've loved, the White Sands and Carlsbad Caverns, and so many beautiful, beautiful natural places to go. So it's great for being outside in these times. So it's been wonderful.
Well, we feel very lucky to have you as now a full member of the New Mexico Philharmonic, and we can't wait to be back together, performing live for our great audience and with our great musicians from the New Mexico Philharmonic. So thank you for participating in our show tonight. And hopefully we'll be, performing together soon. All the best to you, Matthew.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself, stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Good night.
Oh, look forward to it. Good night. Thank you.
Take care.
You too.
Thank you for being with us tonight. Please join us this Saturday at 6 p.m. with a concert by your New Mexico Philharmonic. The program will be the Fallas, the Three-Cornered Hat Suite. So I'll see you this Saturday. Good night and stay safe, stay healthy.